So, I've been working on rounding off the street zone for TurtleRun. As with all of the zones, this involves adding a new minigame and a boss encounter. This one posed quite a few challenges, both on the creativity and the technical side. I've also spent a bit of time thinking about and looking into Steam Next Fest. It's been longer than I would have liked since my last video. I've been busy planning and attending my little brother's stag do and also been rammed at work with picking up some more responsibilities, but I'm back to a regular schedule now. Hi, my name is Mike from Cappiche Games and I'm a new indie developer working on my first ever game, TurtleRun. I make regular updates and devlogs here on YouTube while I try to grow my audience and one day hopefully make this a full-time thing. Check out the devs playlist to get a first-hand look into the struggles and successes I encounter along the way. You can try out the TurtleRun demo on Steam where you can play through the first zone entirely. Don't forget to drop a wishlist if you enjoy it. So, on the subject of demos and wishlists, have you heard of Steam Next Fest? It's a week-long event that happens a few times a year where you can try out a bunch of demos from upcoming games as well as chatting with developers and watching live streams. For game developers, it's an opportunity to gain exposure and get feedback on your game before launching, as well as hopefully securing a few more wishlists prior to launch. The next Steam Next Fest will be starting on October 14th of this year, and prior to this week I hadn't really considered entering TurtleRun into the festival. As I'm sure most developers do with their first game, I grossly underestimated the time it would take me to get the game ready. I initially planned to launch the game back in July, irregardless of wishlists or the state of the game or anything like that. I was following the "your first game will be terrible, so just get something out there for experience" mantra. But honestly, I've kind of fallen in love with TurtleRun to the point where I feel such a strong connection to the project and want to do things properly. Despite the derpy graphics and oversaturated genre, I've grown to become really proud of the game and the fact that I've managed to not quit and start something with more potential. Whenever I get an idea for a new game that I think could do well, I just log it into a document and try to forget about it and focus on what's in front of me. Ultimately, this project is about gaining experience not just in programming, art and game design, but also the process of marketing and actually getting something properly released. It's all going to be valuable knowledge and experience for when the time does come to make that larger scope game. So what I'm saying is, obviously I didn't release the game in July as originally intended, but with that, I've decided to not rush it at all and actually just release the game when it's ready and when it feels right. Deadlines do add a healthy amount of pressure, but as I explained in my quarterly update video, I want to take advantage of the position of freedom that I have right now and do things my own way. That's not to say that I'm just going to chill and take things slowly, absolutely not. But I want as polished a product as possible with as much of a marketing push and wishlist count as I can realistically hope for with a solo-made 2D platformer. So Next Fest is in October, with the submission deadline being early September. I have 3 of the 4 zones completed, but there are a lot of additional things like adding more achievements and polish and game feel that will be required prior to launch, as well as a lot more playtesting to iron out any issues. Shout out to my testers, by the way. They've been doing an insane job at finding things I've overlooked and I really value their feedback. Hit me up on the Cappiche Games Discord if you'd like to become a tester and I'll get you sorted out with a key. Even if you've no interest in testing, join the Discord anyway. We're slowly but surely building up a friendly and helpful community there and have had a lot of good developer discussions so far. So I'm thinking that entering TurtleRun into the October Next Fest gives me a really nice amount of time to get the main game finished up for a release shortly after the festival, as well as a focus on getting that demo that people can play super tightened up. One thing I'll need to figure out is what content should actually be in the demo. Currently it's just the first zone, and while I think it's a really cool zone with a good introduction to the mechanics and gameplay, I'm not sure it fully represents the funness of the game. Maybe I'll include 2 of the 4 zones to give the player a bit of variation in the vibe and some more different enemies and areas to play through. But then that's around half of the full game, which seems like a lot for a demo. But maybe it's not. I'm new to this and I'm really not sure. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. Is it more important to keep things hidden from the demo to preserve some of the interest in the main game, or do we just cast as wide a net as possible and provide the best parts of the game? I think it's probably somewhere in between, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. One of the main benefits of Steam Next Fest is obviously exposure. A lot of people manage to double, triple, quadruple, or even 10x their wishlist count in really special circumstances. I came into this project with a meager but still optimistic goal of 100 wishlists before launching the game. Currently I'm sitting at 56, which, despite being low by a lot of standards, I'm still really happy with. Ignoring the fact that those 56 wishlists are just my mum and her 55 alt accounts, It's really cool to just have any sort of figure on there, and I'm hopeful that if I can get a really strong showing at Next Fest, I could double that and hit my original goal of 100 prior to release. I know these numbers are so low that they're almost arbitrary, but it's always nice to hit a goal, and I have to be realistic about the quality and marketability of my game. More than anything, I just want the experience of what it's like to enter the festival for future projects, and it will also be nice to make some content around my expectations versus reality when the time comes around. I can't think of any downside to giving it a go, so that's what we're going to do. So, assuming I can get accepted, etc., look out for TurtleRun in the October 2024 Steam Next Fest. I'll keep you up to date with how that's going as time progresses, as well as trying to lock down a proper release date once I dig into other events and releases that will be happening this autumn. Thanks again to everyone who's already wishlisted the game, joined the Discord, or subscribed here on YouTube. I'm having a lot of fun with the whole thing. Right, back to business. What's been happening in the TurtleRun development world this week? Well, as previously mentioned, it was time to get the pre-boss minigame and boss encounter added for the street zone. In case you aren't aware, the structure of the game is that for each zone there are 3 typical platformer levels, followed by a minigame and boss encounter. The minigame is played to increase the bonus damage modifier that you take into the boss encounter. These minigames include a custom card game, a dice-based game, and now a kind of mini bullet hell phase where you try to survive for as long as possible, increasing your damage bonus for every 10 seconds you survive. The really fun thing about these minigames is that they've given me a chance to create achievements for getting the max score on them, as well as achievements for beating the boss encounter with the minimum score, i.e. no damage modifier. This should lend itself really well to replayability and get you achievement hunters to at least have a few run-throughs of the game. I also get to come up with silly names and artwork for the achievements, which is always fun. I sat on this minigame for a good 3 or 4 evenings before making any real progress. I thought about a bunch of different ideas where things would fall from the sky and you would try to collect them while avoiding the bad items, but ultimately decided a little bullet hell survival phase would be really fun. I'm using the word hell fairly lightly. It's not like the traditional bullet hell, screen clutter, anime noises type of situation. It's fairly relaxed, which is in line with the theme of the game, but it's actually a lot harder than it looks. Bullets fall from the sky in a row, with one random gap being produced that the player can stand in. There's also a percentage chance that a random bullet will fly in from one of the sides horizontally. I had to add in a lot of cases to make sure it wasn't totally BS for the player. Things like if you just dodge the row of bullets with the gap being on the far side of the room, you shouldn't have a horizontal bullet spawn from that side. But all of this gave me a chance to play with one of my favourite things in the world, RNG. I love probability and randomness in games, which is why it's been hard to not just go and make a roguelike. Someday though. It's cool that even within the confines of a simple platformer game, no 2 runs will be exactly the same, and you can't just rely on previous knowledge to cheese the bosses. I'm sure this will be a major pain for speedrunners. When I eventually add in some kind of speedrunning mode where you can A, select the level you want to play so that you can practice perfecting it, once you've already beaten the level of course, and B, enter a time trial mode where you'll compete against others to see how fast you can beat the game. All of this will be in a future update to the game after release though, as if I keep just increasing the scope, we'll never get this thing out there. I also plan to support the game with patches and updates as much as possible as is feasible after the release, something I'm really looking forward to. So once you've made your way through this minigame, it's time for the boss of the streets, which is one of the biggest challenges I've faced so far. Due to already being a developer prior to getting into game development, I rarely came across a situation where I felt completely stumped. Usually it's just a case of problem solving and trial and error to figure things out. However, I wanted this boss to perform a jump towards the player in an arc, something I thought would be simple, but oh lord was I wrong. This is where I really regretted not staying on in school or at least studying some form of physics for a while. I quickly realised that I had absolutely no idea what kind of equation I'd need to use to calculate the arc that the enemy should jump at. Starting out with my trusty blue box sprite, it became pretty apparent that this would be a real challenge to overcome, of which I barely even knew where to start or the terminology to Google for some guidance. I spent many late nights having lovers tiffs with ChatGPT as I tried to work out how velocity, gravity, jump height and distance could be somehow smashed together to make something work. As you can see from the clips, there were a lot of hilarious fails, and at one point I nearly wimped out and just ditched the mechanic altogether. I'm glad I didn't though, as I figured it out eventually and I think it's a really cool thing to have in the game. It's also valuable experience for things like projectile motion in future projects. So things are now working with the jump. I wanted the next phase to kind of continue with the bullet hell theme that this level has contained so far. After the jump phase, our boss slides over to the side opposite the player and initiates firing bullets towards us. There are two positions the bullets can be fired from, which are selected randomly, with there also being a 10% chance that both bullets are fired. I may as well make use of the parry mechanic wherever I can, as I honestly think it's one of the most fun parts of the game. On top of that, there's a slow vertical bullet that falls at the player's position every 3 seconds during this phase. It can get a bit messy, but once you get used to it, I think it's a great balance of difficulty and just requires a bit of practice. Ideally no one beats the bosses on their first attempt, but it's not Dark Souls. I don't want people having 200 attempts either. I also love the theme and art of this boss. I've no idea why a wheelie bin came to me. There doesn't seem to be too much consistency between bosses. A mushroom, a whale and a wheelie bin, but creative freedom is something I'm comfortable with, and at least I can say it's original. A few more small changes to finalise and park this zone over the next few days, and then I'll be moving on to the fourth and final zone. I'm super excited to get started on that. You'll find out over the next couple of weeks what the theme of that zone is, but I'm sure it's fairly obvious if you've played the demo and followed the lore. The goal is to get home at the end of the day. Poor turtle. Anyway, that's it for today's video. Subscribe to the channel, wishlist TurtleRun on Steam, join the Discord, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.